Hello, welcome to Proudhouse Property Management. So in this video, I want to talk about the smoke detector and carbon monoxide regulations, and I'm going to use this reference here, which is not the regulations themselves, but it is the government guidance that they provide on interpreting the regulations. And as I say, it's the smoke and carbon monoxide alarm regulations 2015. Okay, so this is available online, and when I do these sorts of videos, when I'm referring to legal aspects, I always like to be pretty close to the actual reference and read from the document itself, so that I always give you the very best advice. But I will also provide tips and bits and pieces along the way that come from basic sort of general management experience and so on. Okay, so this video really aimed probably at new landlords. It might be that you've acquired a new rental property and you're setting it up for the first time for a tenant, and you're wanting to know what the requirements are. And I do get a lot of confusion, especially with smoke detectors. People think that you've got to put hardwired alarms in, and that battery alarms are no good, and this, that, and the other. What I'll do today is I'm going to talk through those aspects briefly, and then I'm going to make a part 2 video to this, which will be a bit more technical, and I'll show you some different types of smoke detectors in a separate video. Okay, so today we're just going to talk about the theory. Okay, so what are the requirements then? So the basic requirements under the regulations are that landlord must ensure that at least one smoke alarm is installed on each story of the building that is being rented. They also need to make sure that they've got a carbon monoxide detector in each room where you've got a solid fuel appliance. So a solid fuel appliance is something burning wood or coal or something along those sorts of lines. Okay, so a fireplace, a log burner, you may have a wood burning stove, a wood burning range cooker, those sorts of things. Okay, so they are the mandatory appliances, or the appliances where it's mandatory to have a carbon monoxide detector. So that's another area of confusion. We sometimes get landlords thinking they've got to have a carbon monoxide detector for their gas boiler and so on. However, I'm going to come on to a point about that a little bit later on, okay, because it's an ambiguous area. So that's the basic requirement. Who's responsible for checking the alarms in working order? Well, under the regulations, the requirement is that the landlord must ensure that the smoke detectors and the carbon monoxide detector, if fitted, and if required, are working on the first day of the tenancy. Okay, so this is a reason why you've got to do a check-in, because a landlord or an agent can be with the tenant and prove that the alarms are working, and then get the tenant to sign a piece of paper, whether that's a check-in form or an inventory document, however you want to do it. But you need to get some sort of proof that the tenant agrees that the smoke detectors were working at the start of the tenancy. From there on, it's then the tenant's responsibility to test the alarms and check the batteries. Now, something we do as part of our management routine is we do property inspections, and I've talked before, and I'll talk again about the importance of property inspections. A lot of landlords don't do it. It's the most important part of property management. But one of the things we do, quarterly inspections, 4 times a year. We'll visit the tenants, and we will ask the tenants on that inspection to test their smoke detector and just check with them that it's all working and correct, and it will then be their responsibility to make sure the batteries are working and so on. Or if for whatever reason the unit is defective, then we'll arrange, if it's a managed property, to change that smoke detector. Okay, so that's the basic requirements in terms of checking and testing and so on. Types of alarms. It mentions here, paragraph 6, the regulations do not stipulate the types of alarms, such as hardwired or battery powered, to be installed. The landlord should make an informed decision and choose the best alarms for their property. So what are the best alarms? Well, I can tell you what the worst alarms are, and they tend to be the really cheap battery operated smoke detector that you can pick up for around about £5 or £6. The problem with them is, yes, they work, and yes, they will satisfy the requirements, but because the sensor in them is not very good quality a lot of the time, you'll find that batteries will go flat, you'll get nuisance alarms and so on, and the tenant will get fed up of it. And what will the tenant do? They'll probably take it off the wall and put it in a drawer to stop this annoying thing going off all the time, and then you've defeated the object of putting the device in. Now, clearly that would be a breach of the tenancy for the tenant to do that, and we would pick them up on our routine inspection. However, we've also got to be pragmatic and understand the reality. That's what some tenants may do. Okay, so I would highly advise that you spend a bit more money than you might initially think You don't have to retrofit hardwired alarms, although if you can, that is a great solution. The problem with retrofitting hardwired alarms is you obviously need to run either a dedicated electrical circuit from the consumer unit, or you might be able to run them off a nearby light fitting. But either way, you're going to need to get an electrician in to do that work. It's probably going to cost you several £100s. However, you can get some great quality 10-year sealed lithium battery smoke detectors. For example, Fire Angel, for around about £20 each, make a fantastic smoke detector. It's not susceptible to nuisance alarms. It has no battery in it that you can take out, so the tenant can't tamper with it. And they are a great solution. And you can also get, if you really want to sort of create a nice sort of high integrity system, you can get radio linked battery powered smoke detectors as well. So I'm not here to endorse any specific product, but what I would say is spending more money on the 10-year sealed battery units tends to be a better option, because you're less likely to have the tenant tampering with the unit or forgetting to replace batteries and so on. However, take advice depending on the type of property. You must install the smoke detectors in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Okay, otherwise the manufacturer won't warrant that it's working correctly and so on. Must be installed with the manufacturer's instructions. And also, you've got to think about placement as well. If you've got a massive property, you know, a huge ground floor, and you put one on the ground floor, well, technically you might be satisfying the regulations, but are you really showing the due diligence that perhaps you ought to? Think about the coverage, take the advice that's in the instructions. Or, failing that, the authority on this is your local fire brigade. They will call them, they will advise you on what to do, where to put them, and so on. They may even visit your property and help you. You never know. Okay. So that's the type of alarms and so on. A few bits and pieces that come up. Paragraph 7 here mentions this as well. Heat detectors. Heat detectors are quite often installed in kitchens where you've got a high risk of fire, or higher risk of fire in the property relative to other rooms. But of course, in the kitchen, you're going to get smells and smoke and burnt toast and so on. You don't really want a smoke alarm tripping off all the time. It's going to be annoying. So one solution is to put a heat detector in, because that senses a sudden rise in temperature. However, be careful. A heat detector is not a replacement for a smoke alarm. So if you've got a heat detector installed in your property, on the ground floor, for example, in the kitchen, you still need to put a smoke detector in another part of the room. Okay, so bear that in mind. What else? Where alarms should be situated. So the regulations do not stipulate where the alarm should be placed, just that at least one smoke alarm should be on each story, etc. However, in general, smoke alarms should be fixed to the ceiling in a circulation space, so a hallway, stairwell, that sort of thing. Carbon monoxide alarms should be positioned at head height, either on a wall or shelf, approximately 1 to 3 meters away from a potential source of carbon monoxide. So that's what the regulations say, but also follow the manufacturer's instructions as well. Finally, this is a really important one. Carbon monoxide alarms are only required in rooms containing a solid fuel burning appliance, i.e. rooms containing an open fire, lob burning stove, etc. However, as gas appliances can emit carbon monoxide, we would expect, i.e. this is the government's advice, we would expect reputable landlords to ensure that working carbon monoxide alarms are installed in rooms with these, i.e. where there are gas boilers. So, even though the regulations state you don't need to have a carbon monoxide detector in a room that doesn't have a wood burning appliance or solid fuel appliance, they have indicated on their own advice that a reputable landlord would install them. So from our point of view as an agent, done deal. We are not going to go against government advice, even if it's not actually in the regulations. And therefore, as an agent, we are recommending to landlords that you have a carbon monoxide detector fitted in the room where you've got an appliance that combusts fuel of any kind, so gas, oil, or whatever it might be. Bear in mind, you may have a gas fire in your living room, you may have a gas boiler in your kitchen, or you might have a gas boiler in a utility room, and you might have a gas hob in your kitchen. You could end up needing 3 carbon monoxide detectors, so you know it could end up being a little bit silly, but we try and take a pragmatic approach and fit a carbon monoxide detector perhaps in the room that's most at risk where you've got an appliance. So for example, a gas fire in a lounge, if that's emitting carbon monoxide and someone's watching TV and they're having a snooze and falling asleep, then clearly that's in a risk area. The chances of someone falling asleep in a utility room, hey, I don't know. I'm not going to start speculating, but that's the sort of logical kind of steps and pragmatic approaches that you could take in the presence of those of that rather sort of ambiguous regulation there. Anyway, so that's it. I hope that helps. To summarise, smoke detector on each floor of your rental property, carbon monoxide detector in each room where you've got a solid fuel appliance, with the caveat that it's a good idea to have a carbon monoxide detector in any room where you've got an appliance burning fuel. Okay, I hope that helps. As I say, I'll do part 2 video where I'll have a little training board with lots of different smoke detectors on it, and I can talk you through the different types of devices. I hope that helps. I'm, as you're probably aware, registered electrician as well, so when it comes to the installation side of things and the electrical side of hardwired alarms, I can answer technical questions on that as well. So give me a call if you need to on any maintenance issue. Repairs@proudhouseproperty.co.uk. If you've got a general inquiry about lettings and management, then it's office@proudhouseproperty.co.uk, or you can call our number 01935 388 456. Look forward to hearing from you. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye.